How did I turn back to normal? You think I'm normal?
Kevin 11 to regular Kevin.
Well...
Until 2011, Dwayne McDuffie's website hosted forums where he would frequently answer questions and have discussions with fans about his work. Fellow writers such as Matt Wayne, Matt Youngberg, Eugene Sun, Jeffrey Thorne, and more would also find themselves tangled in the threads of fandom. After Dwayne's unfortunate passing, his site was later taken down, with a large majority of these threads lost, and thus a lot of information left up to debate. A significant era of my youth prioritized visiting these forums on a daily basis, so losing this website alongside the Maestro expanded the empty feeling of Dwayne's mortal absence. But over a decade later, his spouse, Charlotte Fullerton, worked to relaunch the site, but with a surprising twist. Instead of reinstalling the forums, which is what everybody was expecting, dozens upon dozens of documents from Dwayne was generously shared with the world, which I think was an even better surprise. Take your speculations and theories and chuck them into the null void, because now we have actual answers to over a decade of burning questions. And if you know me, I'm gonna get to the bottom of all of it.
Have fun figuring it out.
We're treated with legacy information, such as the details of Kevin's mysterious mutation arc in Alien Force, which was famously changed by the network and survived only in broad strokes in the sequel series Ultimate Alien. Now we know tons of details on what this mysterious third season was going to be like. There's also Humongosaur's deleted shrinking power, the original Null Void Tyrant that was swapped out with Dr. Animo for the completed episode, the working names for Osmosians in Kevin's father, the lost 3-part Alien Force finale, details of intriguing visual spectacle that was eventually watered down, and the rest, well, stick with me and you'll see for yourself. There's simply far too much to talk about in just a simple script. I've tried summarizing my findings and it just doesn't work. So I'm going to go through this document page by page in my standard Ben 10 breakdown analysis style, because this is a gold mine for someone like me. Quite literally too, I mean, look at the font. It's incredible that after all this time we have this posthumous gift straight from Dwayne's old keyboard. I just couldn't help myself with how intricate some of my analysis got in this video, so trust me, this video is this long for a reason. So if I read something that jumps out to me, I'm not gonna hold back. This is easily the nerdiest video I've ever made. You have been warned.
The people of Dracosia marvel at your power.
So right off the bat, the first thing I've noticed is this is primarily stuff with Season 3, which I find very interesting. A lot of the mystery about Dwayne's original plans comes from Season 3. We all know the rumors about the original Season 3 Kevin's arc, the original tone and direction. I still feel like a lot of these are probably going to be after the change, so we still might not get super detailed answers on what the original Season 3 might be like, but there's bound to be stuff in here. It looks like we got a Season 2 schedule script, outlines versus drafts, lots of good stuff here. It does look like it's a little out of order, so what I'm going to do is just click on each one in sequence of the website. I feel like that would be the easiest. So we might be reviewing episodes out of order, but this is more of just an analysis on the information we have here. If you want my actual thoughts and opinions on the episodes specifically, you can check out my adjacent breakdowns. I can even start linking them down below so you can follow along if you'd like my detailed opinions on the episodes, but this is going to just be strictly based on comparisons of the episodes versus these drafts and just little facts and stuff I might find interesting. Another thing that's interesting is while Alien Force was written to be 2 seasons, you can see remnants of that in here, like how In Charm's Way says it's a Season 2 episode, but if all else fails, it says it was a Season 3 episode. So perhaps at some point during Season 3's development, they were aware of the network switching up the orders of the seasons, so Dwayne started adapting his script titles that way, but there's still remnants of the original plan of there just being all of the hybrid arc 1 season and everything else is Season 2. So yeah, I'll just be going within the order of the website, but I might skip around a little bit. For example, BusyBox's outline is all the way down here, while its script is up here. So I'm going to prioritize reading the outlines first. And for those that don't know, an outline is basically just a summary or the rough idea of an episode. Then we can tackle the script, seeing what the episode's specific and details and plot beats and character lines were supposed to be. And if there's any noteworthy changes, we can compare it to the episodes proper after finalized animation and airing on Cartoon Network.
Here we go again.
So the first thing we have here is the season 2 schedule scripts. It's color-coded, written in the perspective of Dwayne McDuffie. You can see right here he has a note that says red text is my due date. And so far the order of the episodes does look in line with what we got. You can see these very much line up with the production order of the episodes on the wiki. I find it neat that there's this little note where it says Max is a hybrid sleeper, specifying in the all else fails. So this is probably more of a personal draft for himself, whereas the more fine-tuned and professional drafts distributed to the crew, I don't think would have like these little personal notes that are probably just there for Dwayne. In Charms Away, Trade Off, Ghost Town, yep, they're all here. Now we're starting to get a little vague and a little different. Wrath's episode was written to be after Primus. Above and Beyond, Vendetta, Secret of Chromastone didn't have official titles. But this right here is the most noteworthy thing, where McDuffie was going to write 5 episodes to wrap up Alien Force Season 3. Vilgax getting the Omnitrix did happen, and Ben 10 versus Ben 10, I'm assuming, would have been the Albedo storyline. So Vilgax's plot and Albedo's plot were probably written to be 2 different stories that they ended up just combining into the final 2 episodes. So we went from a 5-part finale with a Vilgax story and then an Albedo story to just making them team up together in a simple 2-parter episode. So I'm wondering how the stories of the final battle would have held on their own had we only gotten Vilgax's side of the story than only Albedo's. And it's interesting because it seems like Vilgax's story would have been the finale, but it takes place before whatever this would have been. And Ben 10 having a 3-part episode, there's been episodes that bunch together in 3s, but not just straight up part 1, 2, and 3. That's new, or at least that never ended up happening.
What are you? Where did you come from? What are you? Where did you come from?
So like I said, the busy box outline is down here. So even though it's the next up on the script, I'm going to jump to the outline first. So it's interesting to see how they frame a lot of their episode ideas, where they just put down the basic story beats of like, this needs to happen in the episode. And then once it's approved by the showrunner, Dwayne, then the scriptwriter, in this case, Jake Black, starts adding the meat to the episode, making it something tangible for the actors, the animators, the storyboarders. Seems like the box didn't end up changing. It is a metal cube with a green sphere in the center. Although its transformation was supposed to be a lot more janky and clunky, as they put it, whereas in the final episode, it's very smooth. It just has the edges disassemble around it and reform to look just like the characters. The outline does emphasize that the box is supposed to obviously be robotical even after transforming. Visible rivets, metal hair, and all of that. Whereas in the show proper, they look exactly like the characters, minus the glowing eyes. That was probably done just to save time on character design, but it would have been neat if the mimicking robots did have more of a distinct appearance. It could have been a little more fun. Yeah, see here again, it's specifying it's supposed to be a little misshapen and clunky. I'm imagining like the titular movie Robots. Very automaton-like. Lines like this, I don't think we should take too seriously though. Different dialogue, different actions and reactions that the characters have. This isn't really story changing. A lot of stuff like this, I wouldn't even take it as official. Like, oh, Kevin was originally supposed to put his hand on his mouth, but by the final episode that was cut. A lot of outlines and drafts like this are just to get a real feel from the story. The specifics really don't matter until tangible things are happening. Actors are in the booth. Storyboarders are working on the scene. That's when you can start saying stuff is like changed or cut or anything. And anything in this draft, I wouldn't take it as like, oh, this was supposed to happen and then they changed it. This is very rough ideas just to pitch it out. Yep, Humongosaur was in that episode. Or like this term right here, like Mecha Humongosaur. I wouldn't take this as like the official term for the box mimicking Humongosaur. This is just what they're calling it in the script for ease of conversation. Yep, Kevin attacks the robot. Ben turns into Spider Monkey. A lot of the stuff made its way to the final version. Also noteworthy, the robot's repeated phrase is just stay calm in this draft. Whereas in the final thing, the reoccurring phrase is run away, which I think works better as it was just repeating what Ben was saying, but then turns it into a threat. Run away. Whereas just stay calm, I feel like doesn't have the same kind of vibe to it.
And run away? Run away.
Yep, the Vreedle brothers are still here. Although here it's the next day when the Vreedles return to drop the robot back off, where in the final version it's just a few hours later, it's still nighttime. The giant mechanical arms on the robot are still there. Also, it does keep calling it the robot. The term Nalgian Destructor isn't anywhere to be seen, which plays into the recent discovery that the Cosmic Mom species weren't actually called Nalgians. That's just what the name of the Destructor is called. You can hear a little bit more about that in my video about fake Ben 10 facts, which highlights a lot of things people believed for years about Ben 10, but ended up not being true. Although here is interesting, it's supposed to have the fusion include Gwen, Kevin, and the Vreedles, and I guess Ben's human form as well, whereas in the final version of the episode, it's just his aliens, and then the 2 cannons. I feel like that would have been more interesting to see elements of all the characters it imitated in the fusion. But the final version, where it's just a fusion of Ben's aliens, looks really cool too. He also doesn't defeat the robot with Lodestar. He used Humongosaur instead. Another outcome which I think is better, as having Lodestar defeat the robot not only gives the new alien another slot to show off Ben's extended arsenal, and also makes a lot of sense for Ben's available power set. The robot is made of metal. Ben has an alien that magnetizes metal. You might as well just have him use that alien. But hey, maybe Lodestar wasn't even conceptualized at this time. They didn't know they had access to Lodestar. Although this is probably the biggest change. For one, the Cosmic Mom was supposed to more closely resemble a female woman, whereas in the final episode, she's this ambiguous energy shape, and she seems to have more of an emotive personality, exclaiming like, no, don't destroy that. I don't get those kind of vibes from Cosmic Mom. She seemed very calm and apathetic to the situation, like, oh, hey, can I have my toy back? Thanks. Here she seems a lot more concerned. The final episode also has the mom and her offspring just having a casual stroll through the lower dimensions, whereas here the idea was that they were exploring the multiverse, and her daughter dropped it in a primitive dimension. In the episode, they emphasize it's based on spatial dimensions, 26 perceivable or important dimensions.
You only perceive 3 dimensions.
How many are there?
Only 26 that matter.
Which is adjacent to string theory. Whereas in this draft, it's not spatial dimensions, just alternate dimensions. I do like the change to spatial as well. So far, aside from the robot looking less interesting in the final episode, looking just like the main characters versus being like more of a clunky like robot with rivets and everything, I think all of the changes in the final episode were for the better.
The robot may have took the wrong lesson from our completely reasonable actions.
So let's take a look at the script version now. It seems we got 2 different scripts, one labeled 212 and one labeled 312. But as far as I can tell, they're the exact same script. Even when you click on them, the 212 is changed to 315. So as far as I can tell, this was just a mistake. This is the exact same file that was uploaded twice. There's no discernible difference aside from the titling. So perhaps Dwayne changed the title of the draft from 212 to 312 to reflect Cartoon Network splitting the series up into 3 seasons rather than 2. And Charlotte, who I assume runs this website and uploads all of these, just uploaded both drafts just in case. Maybe there's like 1 word or 2 that's different. If anyone's noticed a difference between the 2 scripts, let me know. But I think that she just uploaded the same draft twice under 2 different titles. Now, I won't do this for everything, but as this is the first script we're analyzing in this short series on Dwayne's lore, I do want to talk a little bit more about the logistics and the production side of creating a television series. Much like how I said earlier, where you shouldn't take outlines and drafts too seriously. They're not true changes or true retcons until it's absolutely finalized. Outlines and drafts are full of placeholder information just to get things further. Whereas here in the script, you can see a little bit more detail. They outline the speaking roles, which is important for all the voice actors and the voice director. You can know exactly who you need to get on staff. Locations, which is important for the artists and storyboarders. We can see again that the Cosmic Mom is still not addressed as Analgian nor even Cosmic Mom. So perhaps that name just comes from the credits. Whoever was doing the credits just really needed a name. The term Nalgian Destructor is still not there. Lodestar is still absent from the script. So even as we started getting into recording the episode, these changes still haven't been made. So this is not the final air date version. The first draft was created December 12th, 2008, whereas the final one aired December 11th, 2009. So this episode was being conceptualized over a year before it actually aired. Around this time, the episode that was airing was Undercover, before Alien Force took its holiday break and resumed with Birds of a Feather. So while we were watching Undercover on TV, this episode was being written. I always find time differences like that interesting. Also, given that this episode was written by a guest writer, you could see a lot of differences in the characters. Like starting off with Kevin completing a cheesy joke. Kevin is a bunch of a jokester, but not really in this term. I don't think it would really be in character for Kevin to be genuinely trying to get a laugh out of Ben and Gwen by saying a pun joke. He's more of a sarcastic, make fun of the other guy kind of jokester, not like a stand-up comedian. Kevin's also showing a little bit of insecurity and embarrassment that he doesn't know what the technology is. Again, not really in character for Kevin. Whereas in the final draft, he still doesn't know what the tech is, but he's okay with that. In fact, he's more surprised and interested.
I don't know.
Really? You always know.
It's not like any alien tech I've ever seen.
The final version of the episode still only stamps Jake Black as the writer for this episode, so Dwayne must have had a lot of interference with the final version. He either did a ton of uncredited rewriting or really sat down with Jake Black and they just kept fine-tuning the script over and over. In television production, it can go either way. Usually it's just dependent on your confidence in the writer to take notes or the timeline. If they're running low on time, Dwayne could have just been like, look, let me touch this up, I'll fix it, we could still keep your name on it. Dwayne seemed like a very humble guy. It's been confirmed he did a lot of uncredited writing on other episodes too, so I could see him putting his touch on this script and just still giving Jake Black the credit. The Cube being more of a clunky transformer is in this version as well, so this is the more refined version of the outline that we read, still called Robot Ben. Up here you could see is specifying that his torso is just green and black, representing Ben's jacket. In my head, I'm picturing, what do you call those things? Like those posable mannequins that artists use? If you just take one of those and paint it over. That's what I imagine Jake was going for in this draft. Again, one of the only changes I dislike. I think it would have been more more interesting if the robot wasn't just the character's models, but with glowing eyes. Yeah, at least in terms of character writing, Kevin seems to be Jake's weakest point. Like this line right here, what do you say we load this handsome devil into the car and get on with our night, which was changed in the final episode too.
What do you say we load this handsome devil into the car, take him home, and see what makes him tick?
Which just sounds more like Kevin, you know? That's why character dialogue is so important. You can't just have people saying stuff to move the plot. It needs to feel like their character. It needs to feel like this is the personality that we're used to. Ben still becomes Humongosaur. They also say that the glowing sphere is visible from the heart. Would I imagine like shining a flashlight through your hand? This actually didn't work. It's too bright in this room. But you know, having like that faint glow from within because it's so bright. We didn't get that in the final episode either. A lot of different combat, some changes here and there, nothing too noteworthy. I do like that Ben makes an effort to apologize to the robot in this version of the script though. Whereas in the final, Ben very much just treats it like an object. Ben also immediately recognizes the Vriedels brothers ship versus in the final episode, he has no idea until they actually come out of the ship. Probably just to treat their reintroduction like a grand reveal to the audience.
I've seen that ship before.
It'll come to you.
The Vriedel brothers.
The Vriedel brothers especially don't really seem like they're written with their usual verbal quirks. They're just kind of be written with that typical hillbilly flavor to them, which works extra against Jacob Black's writing, as these are very new characters to Ben 10. They don't have a lot of reference for how they should be written, so Dwayne definitely needed to do another pass on this. Yeah, see, there's no real distinctive personalities between Octagon and Rhomboid in this version of the draft. They're just hillbillies. Whereas the whole gimmick for the Vriedels is Octagon speaks very intelligently, but with a hillbilly accent, which was where the humor comes from.
I do believe we have ascertained the location of the previously discussed valuable object.
And Boyd is meant to play off of that. But if they're both like that, then it doesn't work, you know? Then there's no real point in there being two of them. It would have been funny to see the robot Swampfire go Yi-woo, though. I mean... That'd be a little amusing. Though Swampfire's balls still being made of metal did make it into the final episode, as did Gwen's constructs from earlier. So that at least carried over. Though this was cut, the robot initially turning into a fusion of both Vriedel brothers and Ben. So this episode really was supposed to play around with a lot of the visuals of the robot. It looking like a robot, it's starting to casually fuse abilities together. Really not a fan of the dialogue in this version of the script, but the concept of how the robot was supposed to work, I feel like we really missed out on that. Yeah, a lot of this is still just playing out the same way, just with different dialogue and visuals. The repeating just stay calm motif throughout this. Then here's the big fusion. Ben becomes Humongosaur rather than getting Lodestar. Yeah, they're just trying to rip it apart over and over. But then here comes the interference from the ethereal blue woman, aka the Cosmic Mom. Yeah, here she's a lot more emotive. She's mocking them. The conversation about the 26 spatial dimensions isn't here. They're still on the multiverse concept. Ben does the tin can joke, but with just stay calm instead of run away. So yeah, we can see that Jake Black's pitch was evolved more in his script, but still definitely needed a rewrite.
You're a DN alien.
So what are we looking at next? We got an outline for Ben 10 Hero Generation. That's interesting. Hero Generation, of course, is well known as the working title for Alien Force, so I'm expecting us to be looking at a very old document right now. In fact, it looks very underdeveloped that all of the information you're supposed to fill out right here before distributing it is still just the templates like name a project, name a writer. So we definitely weren't supposed to be seeing this. It's very generous for Charlotte to put this online for us to take a look at. Oh, so it looks like this is the draft for Inside Man, currently called A Man Inside, which started being conceptualized February 3rd, 2008 versus its final air date December 12th, 2008. That is a tight window. They were still calling it Hero Generation this late into the game. Either that or they didn't change the title, because Alien Force first premiered in April 18th, 2008, 2 months after this outline was created. So I guess behind the scenes they were still calling it Hero Generation, even though it was well established the show would be called Alien Force by then. Though here La Soledad is called El Soledad. Episode begins with Tyler trying to escape, having memories of being a DN alien, all about the same. Though here they're addressing that the hybrid is giving the camera instructions as if it's talking to Tyler. So Tyler's flashbacks were supposed to be Tyler directly receiving those orders versus spying on the hybrid. This draft also makes it clear to the audience that the officers were in fact DN aliens before Tyler finds out, whereas in the episode we find out just about the same time as Tyler, making the reveal synchronized with the audience, which I think was a better change. There was also a quick Swampfire fight when they picked Tyler up. Probably would have made the episode too long to keep that. Another section section where his Tyler's flashbacks are in his POV, we would have seen him with his other band, although here he plays drums, whereas in the final he played bass. But this is cool. Kevin absorbs motor oil so he's frictionless and sticks all of the D and aliens together. That would have been a very unique use for his powers. We never really got different uses for the materials Kevin absorbs. He always just kind of did the same thing. The closest I could think of off the top of my head was when he absorbed rubber in X equals Ben plus 2 to make himself bouncy. But typically, no matter what Kevin absorbs, he always uses his ability the same. So this is a big loss for us, I feel like, seeing Kevin get to use his abilities in a more unique way, where the material he absorbs matters more than just being armor. They also generally seem much more aware of what the oscillator key is and what it's used for in this episode, in this version, whereas in the final, it's still a bit of a mystery. And he would have tried to cover the oscillator key and melt it down with his acid. A lot of really interesting ideas in this. Who did this outline? It's unmarked, so I'm assuming Dwayne, since it's on his site, but I guess we can't confirm whose writing this is. The Omnitrix removes Tyler's Xenosite. All of that is the same. Although here they say hybrids instead of hybrids. I'm not sure if that's like a typo. That happens to me a lot too, using Word or Google Docs, where I type hybrid and it autocorrects to hybrids. So I guess we'll have to look out for that to realize if this is like actually a working title for the hybrids, or if this is just what they put in this draft. My God, we still have so much to go through.
No! I'm a monster again.
AF question mark outline. Eugene's son. No, could this be? Yes, this is. Yeah, the second I saw Eugene, I knew what this was. Story outline for the Kevin season 3 plot. That's been rumored and speculated. What is this? Putting pieces together. Let's take a good deep dive into this. So it begins, the trios are doing a typical fight in the desert, you know, standard Alien Force stuff. Although the fact it's separated by teaser, Act 1 and Act 2, they're fighting an unknown alien monster, and apparently it's so detrimental, Kevin can't find anything to absorb except for the Omnitrix on Ben's wrist. He's desperate. He's trying to find something else, but there's no time. This is very much in line with what happens in the Forge of Creation, and Kevin has to absorb the Ultimatrix to stop Agrigor. So these story beats were used later, but it's interesting that this is the teaser, you know, the first couple of seconds to hook you into the episode before the theme song. At least so far, the whole crux of this really comes down to what they were fighting. Like, what are they fighting that's so crazy, so game-changingly dangerous, that within the first couple seconds of the episode, Kevin has to absorb the Omnitrix? He didn't even do that for the Hybrid War. So in order for this to work, I really feel like this should have been coming off of the heels of something else. Like, whatever this to be determined alien monster is, it had to have been established beforehand, or perhaps this could have been like a part 2 to something previously, or even following up on an Alien Force story. I feel like if we just open the episode with them fighting a random unknown monster, and then Kevin has to absorb the Omnitrix to defeat it in the first couple of seconds, that wouldn't have worked for me at all. That is way too big of a change, way too big of a deal for Kevin to do something against an unknown alien monster. But again, this is just a rough outline. We don't even know what would have led up to this. This was written, what, August 11th, 2008? This is right around when Alien X's first episode premiered. So Kevin absorbs the Omnitrix, and we get to see the new Kevin 11. So that makes me wonder, like, if it's Kevin 11, you know, Kevin plus 10 aliens, would Alien X have been included in the fusion? Or since this is season 3, Ben would have had access to more aliens and such. Kevin 11 just seems like the name that they're using to just be like, oh, Monster Kevin, Ultimate Kevin, Amalgam Kevin, no matter what you want to call it. But if we were to take that literally, what 10 aliens would have been in there? Would Kevin had access to Alien X's abilities? Or would have it just been the 9 and then Kevin? Because back in Alien Force, you can't just group all of Ben's aliens together in an amalgam like you could have in the classic series. Alien X just ruins that. So now we're back. New Kevin 11 leaps onto Gwen's rescue. He's fighting off that alien monster, protecting Ben and Gwen. They stop Kevin from killing the monster, and then they all regroup at the highway rest stop with his car. And right now they're just kind of talking to Kevin. In the Forge of Creation, once Kevin absorbed all that energy, he instantly started going insane.
That's enough, Kevin!
When I finish him, then it'll be enough. Maybe I should absorb the Alien X power for myself.
It seems like this still seems to have a level head. Maybe some savagery in there. They did have to stop him from killing the monster. But the fact they're able to just sit there and have a conversation with him, this is very different from what we got in Ultimate Alien. Ben also starts feeling mistrust in Kevin. The old relationship comes out. I love that. Kevin threatens him, and Ben's like, bitch, you never defeated me. Kevin attacks. It's interesting that they specify the aliens in the drafts. I feel like unless it's consequential for what Alien Ben does, it doesn't really matter, or perhaps to emphasize variety. So like, why Chromastone of all aliens? I love Chromastone, don't get me wrong, but I don't know, it just sticks out to me. So they're fighting, they're breaking up the rest stop. Gwen breaks them back up. Now here they say back at Plumber's HQ. They didn't have a Plumber's HQ. So what would this have been referring to? Were they gonna get an HQ in season 3? Or are they just talking about, you know, Helen and Manny's little area that they used one time? Or maybe it was even the Mount Rushmore location, because that did show up in War of the Worlds. But yeah, Kevin's still sticking with them. He's mutated, he's angry, but he's still with the group. He didn't immediately leave them. So they're talking to him at the base. Once Kevin's alone, he hears a soothing voice calling him. He knows the voice, but we don't know what the voice is. So now he's starting to hear things. I wonder if that's just his insanity or if there's really like a character, like a physical character calling to him. And I like this too. Ben and Gwen have their own private conversation about Kevin's situation, and says specifically Ben is only angry that Kevin is being a poor teammate. Another big change from the Ultimate Kevin arc where Ben's just like, I gotta kill him.
He's our friend.
Was our friend. He's too far gone. Either we save Kevin or we save the world.
And they do start questioning his origin. How'd he get out of the Null Void? What happened to him there? Why have his powers changed? These are all questions that we did get answers to in the series, but Ben never really acknowledged it himself. We were kind of fed that on our own through flashbacks. In fact, every time we got more history about Kevin in the Ultimate Kevin arc, it was always in Kevin's perspective. If you really think about it, at least as far as the audience knows, Gwen and Ben don't know about Quarrel. They don't know about any of that stuff. I don't even know if that would have been a part of this story, but like, it's nice to see Ben directly asking these questions, rather than it just being given to the audience unprompted by the characters. What are you doing over there? And Ben starts feeling uncomfortable as this incident with the old Kevin has brought back some unresolved feelings of distrust. So all of the folks saying maybe Gwen and Ben trusted Kevin too easily because of the hybrid war circumstances, sure. But now that that's over, there is a lot of unresolved feelings there, and that's starting to come up. I really like the way the characters are handling the situation. I just still, it all comes down to what happened. Why did Kevin immediately absorb the Omnitrix in the first couple seconds of the episode? What the hell would they have been fighting? This has to have been attached to something beforehand, at least for it to work. Like, can you imagine if it was like that freaking red and silver robot they were fighting in the Ultimate Sacrifice, just some random nonsense nobody, and Kevin's just like, oh shit, I have to absorb the Omnitrix to defeat this, even though I've never had to do this before, even though I fought much stronger and much more threatening and valuable foes and still didn't resort to this. It really does all come down to this. If they had the perfect villain for Kevin to do something like this so far, I really do think this would work so far. I'm really liking this. Kevin runs out. Act 2. Kevin has taken his car and split, so I guess he could still fit in his car. Maybe it would have been more of a slimmer transformation like what they did in season 3, except more obviously made of Ben's aliens. Because if they did do the big hulking monster look like they did in both Classic and Ultimate Alien, like he wouldn't fit in the car. So Kevin heads to an abandoned plumber's outpost. But again, that's all there was in Alien Force. There was no plumber HQ home base that they mention here. But also they say abandoned, yet the further he goes in, it's a high security area. Again, these are just drafts, you know, ideas, pitches. I'm sure this would all get fleshed out and ironed out in the story. That's always an important thing to keep in mind with these. I'll keep reiterating it. Like, we should not take any of these things as definitive ideas and plots that were absolutely going to happen this specific way. This looks like a brainstorming session to me. So, you know, contradicting things like this where it's abandoned yet there's high security, I don't think that stuff matters. Like, Eugene was probably just like getting it on paper in order to have a conversation with the writers about this and self-imposing him in jail. It's a little similar to Nor Iron Bar's A Cage, where Kevin purposefully sent himself to the Null Void, but there it was to be undercover so that he can get revenge for Quarrel. Whereas here it looks like he's just doing it for the greater good, I guess, because he's mutated and he needs to restrain himself. So yeah, Kevin's a lot more level-headed. Maybe the Osmosians absorbing energy makes you insane plot just wasn't even a thing in this version. Although look at this, Kevin suddenly turns into Kevin 11. I don't think he said he transformed out of it. So Kevin can now shapeshift in and out of that amalgam form right off the bat, rather than being stuck. So I guess that's how he fit into the car, right? So he shrunk back down to his humanoid, I'm guessing probably around this conversation. So he jails himself up, turns into Kevin 11, and tries to blast his way out of the cell. Just as quickly as he goes out of control, Kevin regains control. Alright, so maybe he was testing it, like, if I hulked out, can I break free? Nope, I'm good, okay. But now we're back to the voice. The voice is calling out for Kevin. It's calling for his name. It makes him angry. But as the voice can feel Kevin struggling, separate they are just two weak parts. Together they are strong. Maybe it's Kevin's own voice inside his head, so maybe it is a hallucination. Oh, and Gwen's there, I guess. She just immediately found him, like, deep into this abandoned high security prison. She must have been following him the whole time, or like sensing his mana. Gwen's appealing to Kevin. Kevin feels insecure about his problems. Gwen offers to take on the problems as her responsibility too. A really good Gwen moment there. When Kevin absorbs energy, it does corrupt him. So that whole thing is there. He discovers that he becomes addicted to the energy. No mention of Osmosians or a race though. That doesn't seem to be involved here. But we do immediately see a flashback, and check this out. Kevin, as he splits, from an as of yet unrevealed form before he escapes the null void. I mean, it's pretty obvious it was his old original Kevin 11 form, right? So like he splits off from it and it becomes a separate entity. That's interesting. I suppose all the DNA inside of him could like restart a consciousness. So I wouldn't have seen it coming that Kevin can just defuse from his mutations and the mutation becomes an independent character. I wouldn't have seen that coming, but I wouldn't say it's out of the wheelhouse, you know? Like if you took all of the DNA that it took to grow a brain, then you grew a brain, wouldn't it gain consciousness? I mean, that's what giving birth is, right? Did Kevin give birth to his mutation? I don't know. It's interesting. I would have loved to see like what this would have been like. So there's a spark of energy. Kevin recoils. No, he flips out and turns back into Kevin 11 involuntarily, blasting at the walls of the cell. It's interesting that it's the same consistent mutation, like swapping in and out. We have seen elements of that before too, with his future son Devlin, and then eventually in Ultimate Alien, we see him changing back to human, where it was stated that wasn't the first time it happened either. He can like create a mutation and then have that on reserve, dormant in his DNA to access when either he wants to or just loses control. They go into the equipment vault. Kevin activates a null void projector just in time to witness the original Kevin 11 jump through. All right, yeah, so he did split from his mutation. Reestablish, Ben and Gwen are face to face with the old and the new Kevin 11s.
Kevin?
That's really neat. So like, would he be able to split from this new form too? Can he just keep spawning these amalgam monsters over and over? It is like giving birth. The two Kevin 11s approach each other. Gwen uses her powers to pull the new Kevin 11 away. Old Kevin 11 sees Ben. Tennyson, he says. I wonder if they would have tried to get one of the original VAs for Kevin back, or if it would still be Greg Sipes. It'd probably just be Greg Sipes. They're fighting. Kevin says, I need to do this. I don't need to avoid him. I need to face him. Do you trust me? Gwen lets him go. So new Kevin is fighting his old version of himself. There's got to be a metaphor in there somewhere. They're fighting. Oh, but wow. The two Kevin 11s begin to meld into one. So they merge into Kevin 22. Kevin rejects the merge, tearing himself free and splitting from the Kevin 11 form. Okay, so the old Kevin 11 mutation and the new Kevin 11 mutation merge together, and then Kevin, human, mutant Kevin, whatever you want to call him, splits from that. So there's this big writhing ball of alien. So this ball is just all of the DNA from past and present Omnitrixes. That must have looked neat. First thing that comes to mind is like that gross like SpongeBob image where Squidward is like meshed with all the other characters. They'll probably look like that, but like Ben's aliens. Yeah, powers of 20 aliens. Yep. They're just calling it the alien ball. At this point in the battle, Kevin sees the Omnitrix and is attempted to absorb it. Yes, Kevin, give birth to your third child. Only one thing to do. And you think he's gonna do it, but nope. He grabs the null void projector and shoves the alien ball inside of it, which could set up its future return if they don't kill it. They can go to the null void again and it's still there, similar to the wave ads. The projector opens a portal directly underneath them. The ball falls into the null void, but Kevin also falls in. Swampfire's vines shoot out and grab onto Kevin, but in the opposite direction, the alien ball uses its vines to grab onto Kevin, so now Kevin's like, getting pulled by both the ball and Ben. I love that it's Swampfire too. You know, my boy is in this. This is a great line. Kevin tells the alien ball to go to hell in a standards and practice friendly way and shakes him free. See, this is what I'm talking about with like the restrictions of Cartoon Network. Why can't Kevin just say go to hell? Like that'd be fine, right? That's not super edgy. Alien ball plunges into the null void. Swampfire saves Kevin, but this time it's Ben who tells Gwen to give Kevin his space and let him go. Kevin's earned their trust. So Kevin getting another opportunity to absorb the Omnitrix and create his third child, but instead shoving his fusion children into the null void is a trustworthy moment. I can get that. I feel like I need to see that played out. It sounds so ridiculous, but you know, dialogue, tones, score, all of it would probably play into this feeling more believable. As Kevin leaves, Gwen realizes that Kevin got out of there so he wouldn't have to help them clean up. Classic Kevin. But here we go. The levity is short-lived. Outside, Kevin has a devilish smirk on his face. So this is outside of the mutations. This is him. This is pure Kevin. Kevin looks at his hand. He has a bad case of the shakes. With energy arcing between his fingers, he clenches his fists, then walks off into the shadows. So something did happen. So this does set up what I believe would be a season-long arc. Because if this was all said and done and self-contained, then what would be the meaning of this? And now Kevin's alone. A devilish smirk. That's a very specific adjective to add there. So Kevin starts becoming addicted to being evil then. Maybe that would be the thing. Like Kevin just keeps giving birth to like these horrible alien mutations. I know I keep saying birth and it's not really birth, but it's just funnier to me that way, you know? So that's interesting. This is definitely not what I would have guessed the start to the Alien Force version of the Ultimate Kevin arc to be at all. Splitting from his mutations and the mutations becoming an independent character. I never guessed this. I've never seen anybody else guess this. Who would have seen this coming? This is such a weird way to take it. But at the same time, it's super interesting. Like, I would have loved to see how this plays out. Am I happy with what we got? Sure, the Ultimate Kevin arc and Ultimate Alien that aired proper is one of the most widely regarded fan favorite episodes and arcs in the whole series. Everyone loves the Ultimate Kevin arc, but I gotta say, a part of me would sacrifice it for this version strictly because I have faith in Dwayne's writing. This seems ridiculous, outlandish, and without the proper version, there's elements to this I can't see working, especially whatever they were fighting would lead Kevin to do this. But you gotta think, if you describe a lot of things just in a beat for beat fashion without the elements and nuances that make it what it is, anything can sound ridiculous. But the writing of the first 2 seasons of Alien Force was so strong, so heartfelt, so character driven. There's not a doubt in my mind that if they continued to go down that route without studio interference, they could have made this work. And this is also like, you know, it looks like this has nothing to do with the osmosine stuff either. So people who are fans of Kevin being a mutant, perhaps this would have emphasized that more. There would be no osmosine aliens. There would be no Agrigor or Ragnarok or any of that, or Devin Levin. This seems to really play into Kevin being a mutant, except, you know, in a very unexpected way. But I 100% have faith that had the network not told them to change direction, make Ben more of a jerk, make the show more comical like the original series, this would work. Absolutely. But god damn, this is some weird shit. The alien ball. I'm so glad we could read this. It's been such a pleasure going through all of this. We've barely even scratched the surface. Look at all of this content. All right, what's next on deck?
Who dares defy Devoid?
We got an outline by Krieg, January 8th, 2008, for Voided. All right, this will be a good one. Starting off so far the same. Helen contacts them from the Null Void. Kevin's got a Null Void projector. They got the snake. It attaches to Ben's dad's Range Rover. I love that specification. Would this have been after they found out his secret? Yeah, it would have been. Yep, it would have been neat if they did this, that Ben's dad was there too. Just like be there for long, just add his own commentary, you know, really make it matter the fact that Ben's dad knows his secret. Maybe he even could have like waved to Grandpa Max through the portal or something. Have a nice father-son moment. Because, you know, as much as Max, Gwen, and Ben all have that loving connection, it's like Max does not give a fuck about his children. So Ben jumps in. Exterior Null Void Night, because as we all know, the Null Void has day and night cycles. There's the Denizen and the Null Guardian, all the same stuff. Ben becomes Blue Streak. So that was one of the working names for Jet Ray. Jet Ray was originally going to be called Blue Streak and be a blue manta ray like alien. I believe there's probably concept art out there somewhere. But still, that's cutting it real close. January 8th, and they're still calling him Blue Streak? They're probably just still using like outdated series Bibles and stuff, and have to keep reiterating, no, we actually changed the name to Jet Ray. And Dwayne's got to make sure he keeps everybody in line with the continuity, but it's still understandable. Everybody just probably has like different levels of updated information. That stuff happens. But yeah, regardless, Jet Ray wasn't even in this episode. It was just Brainstorm. I mentioned the wrench, when it became known as Degradus was arresting him for treason. So there's 2 things to note about that. One, it's not Dr. Animo. It's this new character called, I'm gonna call him Deg, and he uses the term arresting as if there's some type of like police hierarchy here. So instead of just Dr. Animo straight up enslaving everybody, Deg over here is enforcing them through like some type of legal means, unless he's just using the term arresting loosely. So yeah, Ben's getting filmed in by a denizen, all the same stuff. Who's the helpers, the wrench, who's Deggy? Oh, and also the Null Guardians are apparently machines in this, and not just the Null Guardians that we know. That might play into the name change, because if I recall correctly, in the classic series, the Guardians were called the Null Voiders. So perhaps the Null Voiders really were still the Null Voiders, and then there was going to be original creations, these robots called the Null Guardians, and then later in production they just said, oh, just make them the floaty tentacle fish guys. And as the term Null Voiders wasn't used in the show at the time, they could properly call them Null Guardians. But so far, again, like the busy box changes, I much prefer all the changes made. I like that Deg's reinforcements were the creatures we've seen from the classic series rather than just being robots. I'm sick of villains having their own army of robots. It gets old. And having Dr. Animo as a character too. That ties things more directly back to the classic series. It's also an evolution of Dr. Animo's ability, you know, taking control of animals, experimenting with strange types of power, all good stuff. We don't need another random guy with a robot army. Yep, the gang comes and rescues them. Although it looks like it's more than just Manny and Helen. There's some other people too. It just says the other plumber's kids he met earlier. At this point in time, it was just Alan, right? Who lived on the farm. He wouldn't be in the Null Void. Michael ended up being evil. Pierce was assumed dead, and Ben never met Pierce to begin with. And yeah, at this point in the story, that's it. Like, there really is no other plumber's kids this could have been. This was probably still when the Hero Generation edition of Ben 10 was more about Ben leading a new era of plumbers, which early Alien Force still kind of planted the seeds for.
You're probably meeting some of the other plumbers' kids, but you have to find more. You need to put together a team.
They ended up quickly getting away from that. The fact that they were tracking down plumbers' kids became less less and less relevant, even within the arc where it was supposed to be relevant. It just didn't happen that way. All right, Deg shows up. He's evil. He's the alpha dog. Got that Andrew Tate energy. The real snaps. Brainstorm is used. Oh, here's a little error. Jim typed Kevin instead of Ben. Kevin becomes Brainstorm. Yeah, Kevin shows up in the Null Void and transforms into Brainstorm and gives birth to Brainstorm. This is off Deg. They escape. More backstory. Okay, so in this backstory, the Null Void was created specifically to contain Deg, a prison for him. Whereas in the Prime continuity, it was created by the Galvins, just for any general prisoners, not just Deg. Yup, so Deggy over here controlled the Null Guardians, the biomechanical automatons, yada yada. Maybe that's what the Null Void prison robots eventually became. There's just so many robot armies in Ben 10. Max / the Wrench's lair was supposed to be covered by electrified mist. That could have been neat. The bridge that Pierce and Ben were supposed to fight on was going to be inspired by Steve Ditko artwork. Another visual thing that was simplified by the episode's final release. Pierce and Ben fight. Turns out the Wrench's grandpa. They're mining Corbite, so that's still consistent. Oh, but quick side tangent. The power core used in It Was Them by Dr. Animo in Omniverse is powered by Cormite, the mineral from Voided. You know, as much as there's this big discourse between jacked UAF Dr. Animo and green skin ant brain Dr. Animo in Omniverse, it's nice to have that subtle connection which respects the previous continuity. Although here Gwen accesses the Null Void through the exact same part that Deg's machine was digging, whereas in the episode proper, Gwen opens her own independent rift in the Null Void. Max stays behind. Ben's affirmed to be a new leader. Yeah, so this episode is about the same. Aside from swapping in Dr. Animo, not much of a change here.
So how I look is important.
Not to me.
Here we have another outline versus script comparison. Now this one says as recorded. So ideally this version of the script is exactly what we got, but I guess we'll see. First, let's check out the outline. Alternate titles were Tragic Magic, Spellbound, Trust Issues. They're all the same to me. I don't think the name really matters that much. It wasn't established they were at the beach, but it was pitched. They did end up going with the beach. Rock monster attacks. Charmcaster's watching. But the creature speaks. No, I still could have beaten them. Prior to Ignatius, none of the rock monsters ever talked. Before they just seemed like stone golems that were mindless puppets of Charmcaster. Well, that's not true. I mean, Kenny did have the dog-looking one. Regardless, none of them ever spoke at this point in time. That would have been the first time. I like this story beat, though, where there'd be spectators of the battle that call Ben and Kevin monsters. And it amuses Ben, but aggravates Kevin, as Ben could transform back to being human. I think that would have been more interesting than the kid just running up and being like,
"It's okay. You're a superhero who's really a monster. Guys like you are always mean."
This would have made Kevin's insecurities a little bit more justified, as a lot through Alien Force Season 3, a lot of Kevin's insecurities were just putting that on himself. Gwen never gave Kevin shit for being a mutant. Ben may have poked fun, but in the end, he didn't care. He still treated him like his best friend. And nobody else really said anything either. Like, Kevin's insecurities were completely on his own, which, you know, could be saying something for his character, but I would have liked to see more justification, like a crowd onlooking to Kevin and making him feel that pressure of being a mutant. Here, the rock monsters are talking again, very weird. Kevin meets up with Charmcaster, who goes by Caroline, although here it doesn't specify that Charmcaster's wearing a disguise. I think they're just going with the fact that because Kevin never met Charmcaster, he wouldn't know what she looks like, so there's no reason for a disguise. In fact, that makes a lot of sense. Like, why did Charmcaster disguise herself? It would have been real interesting if she just went out as herself. Maybe she was trying to become what she thought Kevin saw as the idealized woman for him or something. I don't know. Charmcaster can do energy stuff. They kiss. He's got a spell. Same stuff. Kevin shows up and tries to get Gwen to come with him. This whole interaction about going on patrol is about the same. Although here Ben's talking about taking photos to sell of their heroics, but Ben's identity wasn't revealed at this time, so that's an interesting thing. Planetarium, yep, that's the same. Yeah, Charmcaster didn't disguise herself. Kevin describes Caroline as a silver-haired girl, magical. Charmcaster takes Gwen's powers. Oh, it says it absorbs all the mana in Gwen's body. If that was true, she would die, but... Although, here's a big change. Gwen's, like, very defensive, where she said she was a valuable member of the team before she discovered her abilities. I've saved Ben's butt hundreds of times, and it's more of her taking charge of the situation, rather than Kevin being the one to try to redeem the distrust that he put on himself in Gwen's perspective by kissing Charmcaster, which is different. So here it's more of a Gwen being the catalyst for the episode's resolution than Kevin. I think it works better with Kevin, as if he's like, well, I want to say like making up for his mistakes, but he was like, you know, brainwashed by Charmcaster, so I guess it could have gone either way. Charmcaster's wreaking havoc on the town. That didn't happen. Kevin just like tricked her into coming on the rooftop. Kevin says Gwen is pretty much worthless. I know it it's a trick, but damn. So they trick her back to Mr. Smoothie. Ben becomes Upchuck. Mr. Smoothie comes to life. I love when notes can just be direct. This is royally pissing off Charmcaster. Like, you don't have to, like, blanket terms when you're just making notes to your fellow coworkers. I love it. Magic is only one aspect of who I am. Yep, the whole resolution. The rock monsters speak yet again, dragging her into a portal. Oh, apparently Kevin was fighting an 18-wheeler truck that came to life this whole time. In the episode, it was more like a minivan, I guess. Although here, Gwen is present at the ending scene where Kevin washes off in the ocean. And Gwen's the one who tells Kevin she was trying to fix him the whole time. Oh, and she even uses the word doofus. That's cute. I like the canon version better, though, where it's just a private moment between Ben and Kevin. And the whole crux of it is, like, Ben's like, it should be obvious she's been trying to fix you.
She never told me. Should she have had to?
That's such a great moment. I'm glad that Gwen wasn't there, because it kind of puts it on Kevin. It's just like, of course that Gwen's been trying to help you, Kevin. You couldn't see that? You don't think she was doing that for you? So that was a much needed change. Not a bad outline, not too many things different. Another scenario where I feel like all the changes were for the better, except for Charmcaster's disguise. This really does make me realize how pointless it was.
She's got them charmed against me. My power is the substance of magic.
But now we get to take a look at the script version by Peter David, story editor McDuffie. Wow, the first draft of this, December 29th, 2008, about a year before it premiered. So again, it says as recorded, so it should be exactly like the episode, right? So far, yeah, it is exactly like the episode. Some very small, like, rammer things between different lines, but nothing major. Although one change from the outline to the script here is the outline said that Charmcaster wanted to destroy Gwen's life, starting with her boyfriend. Whereas here, Charmcaster spectating Gwen and Kevin's little altercation here inspires her to try to target Kevin. So she's just coming up with it right now. Yeah, you know what? I think this is like the most accurate script we've seen so far. And misspelled Humongosaur here, though. Yeah, I think this really is as recorded. This is it. This is just the straight up script, including the more impactful emotional ending.
Ragnarok is the monster who murdered Kevin's father.
All right, good stuff. We got Vendetta D3 with Dwayne's edit. Another outline where the first page isn't filled in. Okay, lots of red. Yeah, so I'm guessing that the red things are stuff that Dwayne edited, hence why it's called Dwayne Edits. Back in the season 2 script outlines, red text, he did say is for him. So if that logic carries over to here, then we could assume everything in red is specifically by Dwayne. But the official credit is only given to Len, so this is another case where Dwayne did extensive rewrites and went uncredited. But I guess that's just the showrunner's job at this point. So the entire escape scene at the opening was added by Dwayne. Wasn't in the original draft at all. Nice to open up on a action set piece. Oh, and Dwayne is prone to typos too. I feel that, Dwayne. No worries there. Yeah, so far this is just exactly what happens in the episode. This is an interesting little change right here too. You can see only adding in the addressing noun boys and then retorting back to okay, not really, to give Gwen a little quip in there. That's prime time McDuffie writing. I love these little changes that he makes. You can really tell when he understands a character.
Lady or the tiger, your choice. Lady or the tiger, boys, your choice. Okay, not really.
In fact, just to plug another video, I did a whole video analysis on how good Dwayne is at dialogue and stuff like that. You can see another direct comparison with my video comparing the All-Star Superman comic version to the movie version, where there's certain scenes where I literally go through the dialogue and how Dwayne's phrasing has such a stronger impact, and it's just more playful, more flavorful. See, even adding in this scene right here, where it seems like the original line is just Kevin saying the Forever Knights aren't getting any smarter, but he adds in this little bit of dialogue here of questioning them first and Gwen teeing up Kevin's line as an additional retort to her line. They're definitely getting bolder as sort of a not a compliment, but an assessment. And then Kevin contrasts with, but they're not getting any smarter. See, little stuff like that just makes the scenes feel more personable. Whereas without this little bit of flavor, it's just Kevin saying, oh, they're not getting any smarter, which keeps it more of an isolation. Even right here, the original version being Ben, wow, to be honest, I'm surprised you even got a home, which just cuts straight to Kevin saying, what, you think I live in a tent in the woods? Sure, I mean, that works, absolutely. But then we get that extra bit of depth right here where Kevin talks about it being his mom's place, and Kevin being a little bit shy about it. He doesn't talk about his family a lot. He's very stoic. He very much does not open up about his family life, his past, or anything if he can help it. And also does set up his mom later in the episode too, which we do meet. So this little mention of his mom before we get to that scene makes the lead in feel a lot smoother. Versus if Kevin didn't even mention his mom at first, then we get here to Kevin's home and then boom, his his mom's there. It's so unexpected, it's weird. It's just like, we've literally never met Kevin's mom before. It would be so random and weird. We need that little bit of setup just to make it work. That's McDuffie writing. Although Kevin's mom still doesn't have a name in the script. I guess we'll just never learn her name. Though I do miss this little beat right here, where Kevin turns his hands into a shovel and a pitchfork. So even though verbally this is the version of the episode we got, there's still some visual differences. Whereas in the original episode, I'm pretty sure he just digs with his hands. He doesn't shapeshift. Another small change here, Max drops the frying pan off camera, whereas we do see it on screen. Very microscopic changes here, at least in terms of dialogue here. Though this is one of the biggest things that jumped out to me. Kevin's dad was going to be called Lucas Levin. Honestly, I don't hate it. I mean, we got Kevin Levin, then his possible future son, Devlin Levin. So of course, his dad being Devin Levin, it kind of matches. But I wouldn't have hated Lucas either. Though this small change right here, notice how only the second part of his name is in red. Do you think that's just a formatting error, or like the original script had Max call him Lou? Like, ship won't go any faster, Lou. And Dwayne was like, no, say the full name. Ship won't get any faster, Lucas. Max not a schmuck. Oh, it's so hard to tell. I love this. Yeah, because see, look, Plumber is here too. Or perhaps that's just Dwayne emphasizing you need to capitalize Plumber. You know, it's hard to tell. Are these errors? Or are these intentional? What does this all mean? Oh, you're still leaving me guessing, Dwayne, after all this time. See, even right here, only certain things are red. I'm gonna take a guess and say maybe it was a statement at first. Like, maybe the line was like, tell me where you hid my key. And you know, you change the tell me where, and then you cut all that out, you change it to a W and capitalize it, hence the red. Tell me where, and then you add that to make it where you hid, add on the E to make it hide. My key. Changing it from a statement to a question. So tell me where you hid my key. Changed to where do you hide my key? I don't know. I'm just trying to understand the specifics of these notes here. But let's continue. Oh wow, all of this was changed. I wonder how late into production his name was changed to Devin, because all of this is like pretty accurate, at least verbally, to the episode, if not like 1-to-1. Maybe it was like right up into the recording booth where they're just like, yo, on wherever it says Lucas, can you say Devin instead? This is what I'm talking about, where like things can make it so far in production, but until it's actually in the episode, it doesn't matter. Right here, they scripted it with Lucas right up into recording. They still changed his name to Devin. So it's interesting to see how far things go before they actually become canon. Yeah, this is literally all 1-to-1.
Ragnarok is the monster who murdered Kevin's father.
All right, all about the same too. Oh, here it specifies that Ragnarok's looking through Kevin's dad's Lucas storage unit. Whereas in the episode proper, I don't think it's identified as that, but it is very much the same garage area that we're used to seeing. But look here, they call it Osmosium. You're an Osmosium, yes?
You're an Osmosium. Yes.
This is before Osmosian. We got so close, but it was still Osmosium. And Dwayne also added Ethan to it. That could either be a middle name change, or Kevin originally didn't say his middle name. Like, my name is Kevin Levin.
My name is Kevin Ethan Levin. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
All right, let's pick up the pace a little bit, because I can get lost in this sauce right here. I got the Biots of Vadrian or whatever in here. Fighting. Then it becomes Diamond Head. Ship comes back. Oh, but here, even in the script, they specify that Diamond Head absorbs the energy from Ragnarok's blast and fires it right back, as if Diamond Head's really supposed to have this power. I'm not gonna lie, I cheated a little bit. I did check out 1 or 2 things before this video. This is gonna emphasize a point I'm gonna make once I get to another document we're gonna go over. But keep that in mind, it is specifically emphasized that Diamond Head does absorb and redirect the energy, and Ragnarok is staggered by his own blast of energy. Keep that in mind. But yeah, all of this stuff is still the same. Although here when Ragnarok is dangling out in space, and he asks Kevin to save him, and he says, do it for your father. Kevin says, okay then. That gets cut in the final episode, so we can flow into easier for the line, for my father, when Kevin retaliates the same line back at him. Although this change right here, it says when he hits the interface, there's a flash of energy. Ragnarok is transported to another dimension, but no one knows that yet. That didn't happen in the episode. Ragnarok was straight up ejected into space. I like that better though. I disagree with Dwayne here. I do think Kevin needs to earn that kill. I think it's very important for him if Ragnarok dies here. Although here in the script when Kevin meets Gwen and Ben back on Earth, it says Kevin's a little torn up, and you see a second escape pod behind him. That doesn't happen in the episode either. Kevin looks like he's perfectly fine, and there's no escape pod in sight. And yeah, that's the episode. Very minor changes here, biggest one being Lucas, but I'm loving this. This is a blast.
Now comes the part where you tell me...
This spell can send me back in time.
Looks like we got 2 time heals outlined. Now this could be another instance where the same thing was uploaded twice. Yeah, it's looking like it. See, I'm switching through the tabs. You can't even tell because the text's exactly the same. It looks like I'm just staring at with the same sheet of paper. All right, let's dive in. Logline is pretty much exactly what happens in the episode. Here, Gwen approaches Hex's lair in some type of orb and doesn't get revealed until she goes into the window. But she just walks up using her panels, and we clearly know it's her in the episode. Although they keep calling Gwen the figure as if we're not supposed to know it's Gwen, which I don't know. You might as well just show it's Gwen. Also, this orb was still active, never mind. And once it disappears, it is Gwen in her old Lucky Girl costume. A change for the better in the final one. You know, why even have her as her Lucky Girl costume if you're only going to show it for one frame? I think we needed to see it through the whole sequence. Very similar stuff. Ben and Kevin are at Gwen's house. Kevin's insecure. I like how this note about the Book of Spells is from Ben 10 Classic. And the time travels is for mortal and fools quote is all the way back here in this draft. It's a good line. I'm glad they kept it. Yep, Paradox shows up, tries to stop her. She doesn't. She does it anyways. Though the time travel spell here is supposed to like destroy her room because of how unstable it is. In the show, it's a very clean whoop through a triangle. Although these lines right here are exactly from Vengeance of Vilgax, whereas there's a lot of dialogue changes for this episode from here. Like when Paradox says, after his Immortals and Fools line, he says to Gwen, and you are neither. In the episode, he's a little bit more charming, like, and I speak from experience. So it's interesting that the lines from Vengeance of Vilgax are word for word exactly like it was in the premiere, whereas here it's still a little rough. So I wonder how long of a difference between the opening two-parter Vengeance of Vilgax was to this. It must have been a large stretch of time. If they were able to have a finalized script for Vengeance of Vilgax, but they're still in the outline stage of In Charm's Way. In fact, I can check because I did think I saw Vengeance of Vilgax Part 2 script. I'm just going to check the date to see if there's the date. I don't want to skip ahead. Final number draft. So November 4th, 2008 is when they had the exact script for Vengeance of Vilgax. This outline was written February 10th, 2009. Okay, so they did have the Vengeance of Vilgax script finalized while this was still an outline. So it's not super close, but it does cut it a little close. And they're using scripting terms Past Gwen and Traveler Gwen to differentiate them. Again, just stuff to help out in the script, not official names in the show. A lot of this stuff is the same. She talks to her past self. Now she's back in the present. So this is interesting. It says she's now dressed in sweats and a t-shirt, not her Lucky Girl costume. So I guess time traveling Gwen was supposed to still wear her Lucky Girl outfit all the way through the whole scene up till then. Because she is still wearing it in the episode, right? Just like underneath her trench coat. So she went upstairs and changed before she did the spell. I guess that's like, you know, reasonable, but it would have been interesting to keep her in the costume more. And also changing her outfit due to the time ripple. That would have been cool too. There's a lot of visual stuff in these scripts that just gets left out by the time they're finalizing the episode. Except this feels weird, calling her the third Gwen. No, this is still the first Gwen. It's just time has changed. So that makes it a little confusing. But yeah, the past has changed. It's creepy, it's scary. Rock monsters show up, but things like rock monster school children, rock monster mailmen. So it's either like they replaced all the citizens with rock monsters or turned them into rock monsters. It's yeah, I'm glad they cut that. That just would have been too weird. We don't need stuff like that. Yeah, like this whole rock monster cops and robbers shootout. This whole like now everybody is a rock monster thing. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm glad that was not finalized. Without Kevin's powers, they couldn't stop Hex and Charmcaster. Yeah, okay, so they turned everybody into rock monsters. That's not how it works. Rock monsters are like their own independent beings. Kevin is acceptable because this whole thing is he absorbs stuff, so they should have gone that route and they didn't, and I think the episode's better off for it. Paradox's line here though, oh, they still try to resist, but there's no point really. It's all over but the shouting and the torture and the screaming. That's very dark. But also, I don't think Paradox would say that either. Hex's Lair Design 2. Yeah, I did saw it said Design 1 up here, right? Yeah, Design 1. Did that make it into the episode? Oh, yes, it did. You know what? Yeah, first design, it's very dark. It's got boarded up windows and everything. And the second one, it's bright golden, very well kept. The doors aren't boarded up anymore. There's no trees surrounding it anymore. It's got this nice border around it for protection. Also, it looks like Kevin's rock monster form wasn't supposed to look too much like it, whereas in the final episode, he pretty much just looked like Kevin absorbed rocks with some tattoos. So I do like that design for Kevin. This part's weird though, when Paradox tries to explain Gwen died. He said that's the odd thing about time travel. This you is the you that used to be. The other you is the you that you became and then became deceased. And one could make a case that there are still more versions of you flitting about time, trying to rectify the botch that one of you has made everything. I think this isn't just confusing phrasing. I think it's wrong. That's not how time travel works. Like this is a very unique scenario for time travel in Ben 10. Because when he says the other you is the you that you became, even though Gwen returned to her own point in time. So this Gwen, Traveler Gwen, Present Gwen, whatever you want to say, doesn't like eventually become the Gwen that dies. They exist at the same point in time, just in two different timelines. That's just not right. This isn't the future. This is the same time, just an alternate version. Maybe that's why this didn't make it into the episode, because they realized that's just a bunch of bunk. So yeah, that's where the third Gwen comes from. This is really just not right. All right, so Gwen goes to confront Hex. That's all true. Although I love this note just because it's very interesting when I see like reused assets. So it says, third Gwen lands hard in the layer's basement with note 5. And note 5 says, suggested layout reuse. Ben 10 Alien Force Season 1 episode Pet Project, Interior Lancelot Lake Estates Mansion Basement. So they're like, oh, we've done a castle basement before. Just reuse those backgrounds. That's very innovative thinking. Because Ben 10 reuses backgrounds all the time, even across series and art styles. So the fact that they're making story notes in it about it, and it's not just like, you know, whoever's in charge of the backgrounds filling things in, that just shows how aware that the writers and the extended crew are to each other's roles. In fact, I'm gonna check and see if they even did that. Oh, right, this is early Alien Force. It's too dark to even tell. From what I can see, it doesn't look like they did, though. Did they? It's so fucking dark. Though I don't think they did, because a lot of the basement stuff has some technology and stuff that looks pretty caked into the background. So it's interesting. They suggested it. Maybe it would have worked. I don't think they did, because I think I see like a stripe along the border of one of the areas, which isn't present in the episode. It's really hard to tell. I don't know. They very well could have. Though this is something I wish they kept, where Ben was trapped in an energy field. Because like I said in my breakdown, having Ben just hang there as Spider Monkey, it just feels like he could easily escape or just like transform away. And it doesn't seem like the final scenario is something that really could have contained him. But he does use swamp fire. That does happen. This also didn't make it to it. I would have liked that. They even say art note, as indicated, each one is dressed differently. So we would have Alien Force Season 3 outfit, Lucky Girl outfit, and then pajama outfit. But in the final episode, they just made her wear the same outfit the whole time. They're always skipping on the visuals in the UAF. It's a little disheartening. And there's this last little moment where the two future Gwens watch it all happen and have a small interaction. Whereas in the episode, they just walk off and they're never seen again. And here we get a parallel to the Rock people. There's just regular children playing and a regular postman. And that's what makes Gwen say everything's fine. So this one, I feel like it's a balance. Some changes are certainly for the better. The time traveler structure makes more sense in the final version. Little moments like this, or the way they're treating Paradox, is better in the final, but a lot of the visual stuff I would have liked more in this draft. This one was a very fun read.
Ben 10, I've come to kill you and conquer your world. Is now a bad time?
Okay, now we got the script for Vengeance of Vilgax Part 2. So here they're specifying the actual reused lines that usually the recap does. Tony, remove extra breath. So this seems like they're making a lot of notes for the audio engineer, who I'm assuming is named Tony. They even got time codes and everything. So this is a much more technical script. So far, all of this is exactly the same. The lines, the actions taken. Kevin sees his new form. Though here it says there's question marks in the spaces for Ben's aliens, whereas in the final episode, they're just blank silhouettes. The blank silhouettes was definitely the right move. Don't forget, Tony, fix the breath before their powers. Also, azimuth gets misspelled a lot as azimuth, which is a real word. That just looks like an automatic spell check thing, though, because you can see it's normal right here. Now they're at the pier again. It's cute that they mentioned that it's where Ben and Julie had their first date. Very small change, but Kevin's mace says it's made of metal with crystal spikes, whereas in the episode proper, it's made of rock with crystal spikes. Yeah, this is another instance where all the dialogue is exactly the same. There's just small little cues in the script that are different, animation changes and whatnot. For example, them hitting the spider web on the road, they're able to just run over it and get stuck and they can't move without even noticing it. Whereas in the episode, it's much more dramatic. The spider web is in front of them and the car slingshots around getting stuck. Yep, all this stuff is still the same. So this change right here, they have Gwen look at her watch as a beat before she says 5 hours. In the episode, you hear her do that, but they don't show it.
Remember you were gonna do something in about 5 hours?
So would you say that even though it says in the script she looks at her watch, if she didn't look at her watch in the episode, that's a retcon? I'm sorry, now's not the time. Another change here, you don't see Kevin make a crowbar or Gwen lower them down in a plane. They just kind of look into the sewer and it's done. Goop doesn't create a globe, he makes it skin tight. He does reach swamp fire though. Here swamp fire uses the anti-gravity projector against Goop and it's like forcing him around trying to catch it. All of that gets cut. Not really needed though, not a big loss. Though I just noticed something that I missed the first time around. In the script, Dwayne specifies that Ben and Vilgax's duel takes place in Municipal Park. It's very rare we get named real-world locations in Ben 10, so Dwayne going out of his way to mention Municipal Park multiple times strikes me that it's very important this location is identified. When you take the handful of municipal parks into account, only one of them bears a resemblance to the episode, the one located in New York. While many things change from script to screen, such as the text calling for Gwen to check her watch whereas in the episode, she just says the line. For this, it looks like the artists put in an honest effort into making the set look as much like Municipal Park as they could, and with a lack of contradicting evidence, I think it's safe to say that this really is the Ben 10 version of Municipal Park. And given that the episode starts in Kevin's garage, which has already been confirmed to be in Bellwood, and all of the transformations escaping in many familiar areas that are also confirmed to either be in or reasonably near Bellwood, coupled with Ben, and then later Gwen, Kevin, and Waybig all arriving at Municipal Park within about an hour, this is another bullet point in the long and ever-expanding list of reasons why Bellwood may very well be in New York. Oh, but look at this. They have a note for Tony that they're aware of lip flaps missing. So they must have already seen some animation by now. This got really far into production.
And if Vilgax chickens out, I win, right?
Which is questionable because there's a lot of visual things here that didn't make it into the animation, yet they're still using this script for notes. So perhaps Tony is only supposed to focus on the dialogue. That's probably what this little note right here of this being an ADR spot and calling this an ADR script is for, as this is just used for audio alterations. This script is only for Tony, but still need to see what could have been. A change here where Vilgax punches Jet Ray, but in the episode he swings down his sword. This whole battle sequence is very different. There's no big bear hug. Humongosaur doesn't fly through all of these different things, breaking them. Vilgax didn't press a giant statue over Ben's head. Though I did like in the episode where they got the big clash and you see it shatter through the whole city. That was cool. This is different as well. Gwen and Kevin riding on Waybig's shoulders with an energy harness. Whereas in the episode, he just followed them on one of Gwen's standard platforms. But this is a big change. Vilgax turns back to Humongosaur just in time to see him shrink down to nothing, closing on the grass. Humongosaur finishes shrinking. He's smaller than the blades of grass around him. So I guess Humongosaur was supposed to be able to shrink as well as grow. I think I remember seeing that in like an early concept of Humongosaur way back in the day. Maybe that's in that document that I talked about earlier, although when I read it I skipped Humongosaur, so I'll double check when we get to it. But it's neat that that was like not only a real concept, but it was such a real concept that it still made its way as a possible thing in a season 3 episode. I'm glad that Humongosaur can't shrink though. I just feel like it doesn't work for him. I don't know how to explain it. It's just not the vibe. But it's neat that they were gonna try to use it here. They also have been referring to Humongosaur as Humongosaur, you know, obviously in the script, except for this one line right here where they have it as Ben, and now Vilgax is going to get a taste of Waybig, even though the next action line is Humongosaur grows to regular size. So this is probably a script where there's a lot of alterations made to it in it. This is a messy script. This is not supposed to meant to be the official version of the script. So in this version, they already recognize that Humongosaur doesn't shrink in the show, and Ben would have been his human self at this point in the fight instead of Humongosaur.
And now, Vilgax is going to get a taste of Waybig!
But because they're ignoring all of the action lines, this stuff is still in the script. Honestly, this is why I don't show my scripts to anyone. A small tangent, whenever people ask if I can post the 5YL scripts or anything, no. It's because they look like this. Like, there's a lot of stuff that just doesn't make sense in here unless you understand how scripts work. So it's not worth it to me. But it's really neat to see. I'm kind of being a hypocrite here because I'm just like, you can't see my messy scripts, but I love reading your messy scripts. I know, I hear it, but I don't know, maybe one day I'll drop them. As long as folks know, like, this is really what it's like, you know? It's not supposed to make sense, and there's going to be inconsistencies, typos, sometimes you write Kevin instead of Ben, all of that stuff. So is it a retcon that Humongosaur can't shrink? Also, Vilgax's sword turning into the diamond head chromostone crystal pattern and stuff isn't in the script at all either. This line of dialogue is cut to where Vilgax loses track of Diamond Head and Ben taunts him, "Psst, over here," and Ben's messing with him, hold that pose. So the fight was scripted to be a lot longer than it ended up being. Diamond Head was supposed to finish him with a battering ram rather than the triple rock levitation move that, you know, it's just a lot cooler. This right here is interesting where it's like 272 and 272A. I'm wondering if that meant like they were supposed to say the line at the same time, or if they were recording each of them to give the option of who should say the line, Ben or Gwen. In the final episode, it is Ben that questions if Kevin will do it.
But the team's still working, right, Kevin?
I was gonna.
Boom, another fantastic read. This is some good stuff. All right, so at this point, I was recording for about 5 hours, and I was starting to run out of steam. As much as I'm loving digging through these documents, I want to give them my full attention. So I feel it's best to cut it here, refresh, and come back in a follow-up video. There's still the rest of the Alien Force documents, all of the Ultimate Alien ones, and even Dwayne's original pitch for Omniverse. And I have infinite ambition to cover all of it. I know I just said we're going on an upload hiatus to make time for our bigger projects, but I just had to put some things on hold to make time for this. So while plans may be pushed back while I digitally trek through Dwayne's drafts, rest assured, they aren't at a complete standstill, and we are indeed still working on everything we previously said we were. We'll always be making progress on what we have cooking, and if you want to know exactly what we're up to behind the scenes, you can join our Patreon or YouTube memberships for frequent and exclusive updates. So don't be left in the dark and sign up today starting at $1, and you just might be responsible for the quality that we have in store. I hope you all had just as much fun reading with me, and I'll see you in the next one. But until then, keep it fizzy.
A little different than all the rest. I'm quite old-fashioned where I had sometimes played chess.